because we're going to break down what your metabolism is doing, why your metabolism isn't broken.
If you've ever said, what's going on here? I'm doing the math equation and the results are not coming out right. That math equation never worked.
These all come together in a really holistic way that are going to not only improve your life, but decrease your body fat in a way that your body composition works for you.
And why all of our weight loss plateaus when we aggressively diet is because
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Kelsey.
where the hell are you?
I am fired up today to discuss our topic.
Don't point at me with that.
I went mad scientist on it. Listen, I'm pointing at everybody. I'm going to yell at everyone on this podcast several times. It's real Bernie with the finger, too. You know what I mean? Don't you?
No, it's the whiteboard marker.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Now point at me. Now point at the words. Now point at me. Now point at the words. Yeah.
This is a very serious topic today, guys, and I think you're really going to enjoy it if you can get past the fact that I'm going to point at you with my whiteboard marker like a little mad scientist. And if you're not watching on YouTube, we have a whiteboard and we're going to visually explain to you why your metabolism isn't broken. So get out your pen and notepad because this is an important episode.
Are there going to be bar diagrams?
Listen, we're going to
chart.
There's definitely going to be an image of you on the board that I'm going to draw. And I don't want to take anyone to take offense to it. So I already started with how my handwriting is. I'm not a person. I think there's different types of people in this world. There are people with really spectacular handwriting. And every time they write, I'm like, it's like a song. I'm like, that's beautiful. I'm not one of those people. I just admire those people. That's not me. My handwriting has never been great. If I take a long time on it, it can be like barely acceptable.
What? Where the hell did you get a whiteboard?
Listen, this
Maybe
morning
just start
I
over.
was like, Matt, you need to put the whiteboard up.
This morning you said that?
Yeah, it got nailed in this morning. It got nailed in this morning.
Okay.
Up on our wall, which is, it's a vibe, but my son slept through the night last night. So we're on fire today. Like so much so that I woke up at 5:38 and I looked at I looked at my phone that pulls up the camera because he wasn't in my bed. So where is he?
Where is he? Oh my God.
And I pulled it
lost
up
him?
And he's just like sitting there, like looking around. But I was like, were you sleeping? It was wild.
So now this makes a lot more sense. You show up in a brand new set pointing at me with a whiteboard marker.
Yeah.
And you were on time. You were
with
yelling. You said something about a scrolling iPad.
I got a scrolling iPad, yeah.
I was so confused, if I'm going to be honest.
Caught off guard.
I was like, I guess there's like a new, I guess like she's found the AI version of her body and just put it into, I didn't think it was really you, but
I slept.
Say something that would make me know it's you.
Listen, when you get some sleep, it's a total, I know every person is like, yes, but it's a different version of you than like the person that I make it through on a daily basis with multiple wake ups during the night for the last 451 days.
No one's counting.
No one's counting or anything, but
that's
I
an
have
approximation.
Not had
451.
Approximately and a half.
Do the calculations on the whiteboard.
That's how many days like I have not had a full night's sleep, and I did. I rocked him at 11:45, but then it was nothing until 5:38, and that is
the flow chart. Show it.
The flow chart.
It's going in this direction.
It's getting weird. Wow. But guys, for today's topic, I just want you to know that your eat less, move more.
No.
It's
Yeah,
not a strategy.
it's not
And
a strategy.
that is going to be the crux of our conversation today. But if you this has been perpetuated for so many years in the health and fitness industry. We keep doing it. Experienced trainers keep doing it. And we're not just gonna give you our opinions on this. We've done several episodes on, metabolism and some topics that we're gonna talk about during this episode. So if you want to listen back to a couple of the topics that I'm going to touch on right now, you totally can. But the overall message of eat less, move more is not an equation that works. And that's why I have my whiteboard here today, because we're going to look at that equation and give you strategies that work at the end. But we need to talk about why this is not a strategy.
I I
Trainers, tune in. This is not a
tune in.
strategy.
Stop telling clients to eat less and move more as the magical secret. Um, I'm here for the equations. Did you know, friends that are listening? Because I know you know this, Kelsey. Did you know, friends that are listening, that in my life prior to CVG, that I was a classroom teacher in high school, and I've done my fair share of writing on the whiteboard. Um,
You have excellent handwriting.
well, I was a big
Just so
well,
we're clear.
this is also a couple years. This is like about 8 years ago I stopped teaching, but in those times people were moving over to like using technology, but I was still writing on the whiteboard. I was very like old school about it. But no equations were ever written by me because I'm not a psycho, so I didn't teach math. Okay. That's only for the crazy people. But I will say I'm here for, all I know is that teaching is a dramatic art, and the circling and then crossing out of a thing, it gives it big. Like when you do, and you have to do it in person too. Like you have to be like, I'm circling this and now I'm crossing it,
And it is
because it
not
really
valid.
it
Yes,
gives. I
it
think
gives.
the class is like, okay, she
Mhm.
circled it, then she crossed it out. Okay. Okay. I'm
Well
this I have to lean in.
well,
This could
this
be
has
big.
been decades in the making, and now I, Kelsey Hellier, have just crossed it out, so we are done with it because this has been decades in the making. But something that I want to talk about when we talk about eat less, move more, because obviously this is the calories in versus calories out. However, you want to put this into a framework that says essentially the same thing. I want to talk to you about this for a second because we're going to break down what your metabolism is doing, why your metabolism isn't broken. But I also want to just reference back to the fact that in the past, we've talked about set point weight theory. So if you haven't listened to that episode, that would be a great one to come in here with, because that touches on our metabolic rate, our resting metabolic rate, everything that we're going to kind of cover in here. Calories in versus calories out, effective weight loss strategies or fat loss strategies is something that we have talked about in the past. Measuring fat loss on a scale. I mean, if you haven't listened to that episode, I just want to like say, preview to that. If you were to decide what an orange weighs, you wouldn't put a bundle of oranges, 30 of them, on a scale and say, like, I could probably figure out what that one weighs in this whole number of things that I don't even know how many other ones there are. Like, that's how you're measuring your fat, by the way. That doesn't work. And then we've done episodes on metabolism. So those are just some precursors to, like, if you're first time listening to this podcast, those are things that we've covered. And today we are going to talk about how your body actually burns calories, and we're going to break it down for you in a digestible.
Uh-huh.
I hate myself.
I also hate you. I
In a
I
digestible
100% hate
form.
you. I you're the worst, and I wish you would go away, but, this is who showed up today, so I'm just gonna
I didn't even mean to say that. I just the play on words
but
was
it
too
was
good.
I know that I
Yeah,
can't.
if you're not
Alright.
watching on YouTube,
Shut
like,
up.
you literally, like, what are you
I
doing
hate
with
you.
your life? Just watch
I
on
hate you.
YouTube because this is a whole vibe.
All right. So we go into every single trainer, Facebook weight loss group, friend group, every single person and we say, what is the secret? I have some body fat that I really want to lose. And they say, well, listen, it's just a simple math equation. Okay.
Eat
It's
less, move more.
if you
Duh.
eat less than you burn, then we can lose weight. And I know that our brains want to simplify things because, hello, complex things take a lot more to understand. They sometimes fall outside of our range of speciality, and we don't have 110% always to dedicate to the research of these things because you might have to like go to work or like take a shower or do some other shit, make dinner. So I get it. But the reality is, this is not a strategy because it is a major oversimplification of how metabolism works. And we can't oversimplify something that is extremely complex and then wonder why the strategies that we're using are falling short all the time. If you've ever, now I'm speaking to everybody here because everybody's
Literally
going to
every
nod their head.
person ever.
If you've ever said, I'm tracking my calories in versus calories out, and I am in a deficit and I'm stalled, I'm in a plateau, I'm no longer losing fat, I'm no longer losing weight. If you're tracking it on the scale, please stop that. But um if you've ever said to yourself, what's going on here? I'm doing the math equation and the results are not coming out right. It's because that math equation never worked and it was set up and designed to fool you into thinking that you can oversimplify a really complex system.
So not only are you oversimplifying a really complex system, it's not set up for you to work. And for people who are the most experienced in tracking, on average, those people are miscalculating their caloric intake by over 30%. So when we talk about like what that actually looks at, that's people who know what they're doing. They've probably been in the industry for a very long time. They're coaching others on how to track their calories, and they are miscalculating their daily caloric intake by a significant amount because it's a really hard thing to track calories of like what your caloric needs are on a daily basis. And I'm going to go into like how that differs for every person, body, like all of the factors that come into that. But just to like it's like being like, well, I probably could fly a spaceship, but like NASA's not doing it really well. Like, you know what I mean? Like when we're talking about like you don't have all the time to dedicate to this. We're just regular people out here. And the people who spend the most time calculating this thing are still miscalculating their caloric intake. So if you're like, "Well, I've tried this in the past, it really hasn't worked," or "I've miscalculated," or "I think I've miscalculated," or "For some reason, I'm not losing body fat," it's like, you are in the majority, and actually the minority of people are like, "Yeah, that totally worked for me," and there's a variety of reasons why it may have worked, and I want to kind of pinpoint some of those because there's a lot of misrepresentation in the health and fitness world as to what worked and what steps were taken for individual people to achieve the fat loss that you might be looking for. So let's get into you. I'm going to draw you. This so
Make my
re-
hair pretty.
for for every person, but we're going to talk about this like kind of like a household budget. So I'm going to put this like a house. This, the house has to be like kind of triangular. So these are your hands. Let's put this. You are smiling. You are smiling.
Pretty hair, pretty hair, pretty hair. Not that hair.
I'll give you a bow.
Okay.
So let's put some weights in this hand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Very
and
important.
maybe let's put like, I don't know, like a broccoli. A broccoli, like a food and a broccoli. So let's like just talk about like how this household, like this is your house. So I'm not gonna I didn't put any random like curves of like how to achieve this body type. Like this is what our house looks like that carries us through. Well, for today that carries us through this life, and it's broken up into like four main categories of how we digest and how our calorie expenditure looks like on a daily basis. So that's our 4 kind of like different, pillars that we're gonna talk about and what makes up your caloric intake. Now, obviously, maybe I should make this one a little, this one down here is obviously the biggest, right? Maybe we should make it even bigger. Hold on. That just for a visual representation, that's better.
Yeah, look. Yes.
Look how happy
So
she looks.
happy.
Now, what I want to talk about is the bottom half here. So, this is your BMR. And a lot of people have talked about what your BMR is, but we're going to really break it down into really simplistic terms of what your BMR is and how much how much that takes from your metabolic rate. Like what percentage of calories on a daily basis is put into your BMR. And this number is probably going to surprise you if you've never heard about this. This is about 70%. So
So
70% of your caloric intake on a daily basis is right here. BMR.
So I wanna just
You want to have
clarify
legs?
for people yeah, I wanna have legs, yeah, I do wanna have legs. I don't wanna go for a run, but I do wanna have legs.
What feet?
So, I wanna clarify for people because the way I really like this analogy of setting it up this way and using it kind of as a budget because what we need to think about is that your body is primarily responsible for staying alive. So it budgets
It's its
the
only goal.
energy exactly. It budgets the energy that comes in certain ways and percentages. And that's what we're talking about here. So when energy goes in, and we can sub out energies, calories, it doesn't matter. Those are the same thing. Calories go in the body and then it budgets them out and uses them in different ways. And there are BMR is our largest section here, which is up to 70%. But that is in the scenario, not only the largest way, but also the most important thing that it's going to spend energy on first. It's going to, like, you can think of this like your mortgage or your rent. This is the we don't compromise. This must be paid first. If nothing else can be paid, this has to be paid.
100%. Like your body doesn't care if you say, but like, excuse me, I'd really love like the cellulite on my legs to be like a part of this. No. Like, it does not care. It's like organ function is the biggest thing. So like 60-70%, like this is and this stands for basal metabolic rate, just so we're when we're talking about BMR. Your basal metabolic rate is your 70% of your caloric intake. So let's talk about what that actually means. That's sleeping, that's organ function, that's breathing, that's coughing, that's brain function. These are things, cell repair, temperature regulation. These are things essentially you don't have to think about. So 70% of your caloric intake of the what you're taking in on a daily basis is going to things that you don't even think about. And that can feel a little bit, this is digestion, that can feel a little bit like kind of like disheartening for a lot of us at the surface level, because this isn't your step count. This isn't things that you have any control over. It's we're breathing here. And the your energy that you're taking in needs to be able to feed these systems. So it needs to be able to regulate your temperature. It needs to be able to control the fact that you want to cough or sneeze, or all of those things are your BMR. That's 70%. And we're going to spend some time like talking about this, but I want to talk about kind of like what your other expenditures are so you can kind of understand how important this 70% is. And we're going to come back to the fact that like although these are things that you don't think about, I'm going to also break down what your main players are in your BMR and what may help you adjust some of your BMR. So there's hope. There's there's hope, but that's 70% of what's happening. So your next one is your NEAT, and that is about 15%.
NEAT is, if you aren't familiar with the acronym, it's your non exercise activity thermogenesis. So it's all the little things that you're doing during the day, movement wise, that aren't necessarily exercise. They're not formal exercise, but it does require energy from your body, which requires calories. And these are things like just normal everyday functions. Even things like fidgeting counts because you need energy to move in any way, shape, or form. So, like walking around the house, standing, cleaning, fidgeting, pacing, these are all things that would be put into the neat category.
Yeah. So again, these are things that you don't have control over. Your neat are really essentially like these aren't things that you have like a ton of control over. Carrying groceries, like things like that. Like you could say like, oh, I have some control over that, but on a daily basis, like if you're like someone who like fidgets a lot, or you're someone who has a lot of movement, that's generally from like you have an excess, like your energy is running at a higher level, so those things might increase a little bit more, but that we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, but like these are essentially like this is not your exercise at all. I want to be very clear about that. That's not the walks that you're taking. That's your non-exercise activities basically that you're doing during the day. If you're pacing while you're on the phone, all of these little things that you're doing that you have no control over, that you're doing just like automatically throughout the day. Like individually, these seem to be a little bit small. Like I'm talking here, I'm standing here talking to you guys, right? And like my hands are moving a lot. But but you would think these things seem small, but built throughout the day, these actually do add up to, well, you know that we haven't talked about exercise yet. So they do add up to more than the time that you spend at the gym. That was that an oops? Does that hurt everyone's feelings?
Little shocking, but
Mhm.
important to know.
Quick break here to pull some things out of the dungeon vault.
You guys are always begging us to bring back prints that were your absolute favorite, but you missed for some reason, or you have, you know, had some weight loss and they don't fit you anymore, or there's so many great prints that you might have missed, and we are opening the CVG vault,
We're
and they
opening
coming
the
back.
TV. Oh, they're coming back just for a short time and just while supplies last. But this new release is coming back from the vault. And as you know, we have new product launches on a weekly basis. But these had previously sold out. They were extremely popular. And some of you guys have not been able to get your hands on them. So if you've been seeing them maybe in our Facebook group or seeing them floating around or had your eyes on them, for many of you guys, for years, and not been able to get your hands on them, this is your chance because they're coming out of the vault for a short period of time just for
Don't miss
you.
them a second time. There's only one person to blame if you miss them a second time, okay? I can't be responsible, all right? Don't miss them again. This is your last chance at some of these vault prints. Enjoy.
So next is your TEF. So that's about 10%.
So, when we're talking about TEF, what we're talking about is the thermic effect of your food, which basically your body, when it's digesting food, it needs energy to do that process. So, every food is going to have a different amount of energy required to digest it. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But your body does need to spend energy on, ironically, digesting the energy that it has intaked. So, when we're referring to this is another unconscious process. It is changeable though, because the foods that you're taking in do require a bit of a different amount of energy expenditure to digest them.
So this is really where I want to like hone in on like calories or calories in versus calories out. Like that's not that actually doesn't equate. So like when you're saying like, oh well, I took in, 80 calories of a smoothie rather than the calories from some type of whole foods. And I'm not digging on I'm not taking a dig at smoothies at all. If you feel good in them, like whatever, like you're enjoying them, go for it. But when we're talking about the different types of foods, protein being something that takes more energy to digest, you need to think about the fact that, like, it's not just calories in versus calories out. If it's requiring more energy to digest different foods than others. So protein, for example, requires more energy. You're burning more calories in it if I wanna translate, you're burning more calories to digest protein than you are other foods. So, when it comes to something like, is this under your control? It's under your control in a sense of, like, am I intaking nutrition-based foods that require my body to work to digest? And that comes to chewing, like, we've
This
talked
is
about this in
this is
other
all
episodes, but we've talked about this in other episodes when we talked about, like, the priority being whole foods, the priority being foods that you need to chew, that you need to absorb, that are nutrition dense foods. And it's not just because your energy is going to be used in a more effective way, but it is because when we start to talk about how your body is using that energy, it's using it differently. It's requiring more energy from you, from your bodies, from the caloric intake that you're taking in to be able to break these foods down in digestion.
Yeah, chewing's a good example of your NEAT. That's, like, something that you're doing throughout the day that, like, is requiring calories, but is not obviously exercise. But I do want to point out that, all of the previous research showing like 80 calories of, McDonald's fries and 80 calories of broccoli being the exact same thing is
No.
okay, no. No, and it's not because 80 calories isn't 80 calories. Yes, of course it is. It is what is required once the calories enter your body because we're not working in a vacuum. Once they go in, the amount of energy expended to digest them is completely different. And that changes about 10% of your total calories used during the day. So, like, if we're talking about making a difference here, we've got 10% of our calories being expended on processing the fee that costs your body energy to process food, and it's going to process it different. 80 calories of McDonald's fries, 80 calories of grilled chicken. Those are two different processing fees.
Different, like, way to processing different fees. And I do want to, and we're not demonizing any specific food groups, but protein is the highest. It costs your body the most. It's going to require the most amount of calories to internally break down, and fats are the least. So when you're thinking about just some of the foods that we're going to intake, and I think this is a helpful because we tend to demonize foods and we tend to say, like, well, I'm just going to, this is why I mean, I'm going to say this probably about 10,000 more times during this episode, but this is why the calories in versus calories out is so problematic to your progress. Because when you think about, well, I'm trying to reduce calories, I'm only going to have half that chicken. When in all reality, having the appropriate amount of protein that you're taking in, then is going to then feed your other systems and is going to require the most calories for your body to break down in this spot. And then we're going to talk about how it has an effect in here, but how it has the most effect here is like, no, you need to take in the appropriate amount of protein. And then when it comes to, so this is, when we're talking about just calories and vacuum, and it's like, well, I want to reduce my caloric intake because I want to be able to fit my dessert in. So I'm going to take away from my protein to be able to fit my dessert in. It's like that equation, that math equation, doesn't work. That actually doesn't work for how your body is going to break this food down. And that's why I want to kind of like hit on this in a way of when we start to look at some of the bad days that we're having, where you had like a bad food day or you have a dessert or a snack or whatever it is that you're going to put into the category of, well, now I've gained so much body fat, I need to go work it off at the gym.
Oh, the worst
5%.
news.
I'm going to go work all that off at the gym. What are you working off?
5%.
5% is your exercise. This is your eat. This is your exercise activity thermogenesis. This right here is 5% of your caloric intake. So when we're really like, you're looking at this the same way that I am, guys. If you were looking at, okay, I want to prioritize decreasing my body fat, I should eat less and move more. That doesn't actually work. When we break it down into what the numbers actually are, that doesn't work. And you can see it here because would you say, if you want to make a big impact on something, right? Would you say, I'm going to first look at the 5%?
This is why we
In no time ever
used
have I
it
said
in
that.
this is why we used it in terms of a budget, because when you understand it in terms of this is what your body is doing with the calories that you're intaking, and then you get to decide where we want to some of the spend is within your control, some is the spend is not within your control. But when we lower the amount of money coming in, let's say, no matter what, that equation is going to hold up. So if you decrease your calories to a place where you say like, well, I lost my job and
You
so
get arrows.
the budget has to be lowered everywhere. The fact is that your body is going to do the work of lowering the budget, but it is not going to change the percentages that it has to use on basic functions, on meat, on thermogenesis of food, and then on your exercise. These are those percentages stand no
They
matter if you
stand.
have a job or not.
Yeah.
You got to
And
pay the mortgage first.
you gotta pay the mortgage first. And this overall, what I what I wanna say here, and I don't wanna hurt your feelings, but I'm gonna say it anyway because I believe knowledge is power. This right here is why cardio for fat loss is such a poor strategy because it has no effect on your major percentage here. It doesn't have any effect. So when it comes to cardiovascular health, yeah, I'm totally here for it. You guys know that I do feel like a well-rounded programming, but when we're looking specifically at I want to decrease my body fat, so I'm going to increase my calorie. I'm going to increase my cardio. It's a poor strategy. It's a really poor strategy when you break it down with the numbers because there is no significant impact on any of the other major expenditures that you have on a daily basis.
And before everyone cancels their gym membership,
Don't cancel your gym membership. We're gonna
5%. Okay, hold on. Don't cancel your gym membership yet because, okay, is exercise the biggest lever that you can pull in terms of overall metabolic rate? No, but exercise is so powerful for your overall health. That is never going to change. It is, yes, your metabolism is mostly powered by the life that you live all day long. Yes, it's not mostly powered by the 1 hour in the gym. But there are so many health benefits that are going to come with longevity, that are going to come with the work that you're doing in the gym. Please do not cancel your gym membership. Just understand that it isn't the major driver when we're talking about your metabolic health and your metabolism as a whole. But don't underestimate it. It has a different job.
So
It has a different job.
here's the thing that you really wanna think about with that. Definitely don't cancel your gym membership. Obviously, that's not what I do, that's not what Rachel does, that's not what we're promoting here, but I do want you to think about it on a daily basis of what's the most effective use of your time and how those break down, because when it comes to body fat, when I wanna lose body fat, then we're going to this idea of, like, decrease calories, punish my body with workouts. All of that is a losing strategy, and it's not actually a strategy that moves the needle. So when we think about your time spent in the gym and we're talking to you about refocusing what that looks like, we're talking about like how to measure that on a daily basis. What does your energy look like? What does your sleep look like? What are your food nutritional choices? What do those look like? And those being so much more important than body fat, this is what I'm talking about. Because when you get effective sleep, you break out a whiteboard. No, when you get
You do. Some of us start nailing whiteboards to the wall at 6:30 in the morning. It's just,
But when we think
whole
about
vibe.
things like our BMR, when we think about things like our knee, when we think about our muscle, which is something that I'm gonna then hit on, is that when we have more energy throughout the day, we are increasing some of these things, and that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about, like, the movement, the fidgeting. When we have energy, when we actually are fueling our body appropriately, and we are building energy in the gym on a daily basis, we're sleeping better, we're making better nutritional choices, these all come together in a really holistic way that are going to not only improve your life, but decrease your body fat in a way that your body composition works for you. It is a place where your body feels comfortable at the weight that it's at. And that's why I feel I'm on a roll, but that's why I feel it's so problematic to set this weight, this goal weight that is so arbitrary and has so much to do with so many other people and body sizes and has nothing to do with taking into account what your metabolic rate is right now, what you do on a daily basis, like so many of these
Your
other
muscle mass,
factors, your muscle mass, like so I
your s
do want to hit on muscle mass, for example, because like
your bone
your
density.
bone density, your blood, what stage you're in,
Wait,
your
don't
hormones,
go to
like
muscle mass yet. Don't go to muscle mass yet because I
you
want
got it.
to, I this is what I have to do with you today because you slept, so now I have to be like, "Wait, can you wait for me?"
My body, my
Wait
brain's on fire.
wait for me. The train has taken off. It's left the station, and I'm just still here like, okay.
People with ADHD sleep.
So, here's my brain. So, okay, this is I just wanna say before we move on to the changeable factors, this is the strategy that we've been doing for years. I want to lose body fat, so I'm going to cut calories first, and then I'm gonna increase my exercise. And that might work for a little while, and then something happens, and we are, constantly looking for the source of the blame. We refer to it as a plateau, but what we blame it on could be, a number of things. We blame it on hormones, we blame it on lack of sleep, we blame it on our body is just the worst, our genetics suck.
I'm
um
not good enough is usually what we blame it on. I had
mm.
that key lime pie 3 days ago, and that really like, that had literally no impact.
So
That was
my
your total
favorite
5%, like and
eh
it's like, you just went into the, like, point 2 like, what?
My favorite is when you say to people, I cut my calories and I'm working out way more and my weight loss has stalled out. And what you get from people is, you're probably not being honest with your calories in, are you? Are you being honest, you freaking liar? And then the gaslighting begins of, are you really working out as much as you? Are you counting every bite? That makes me want to throw something through a window when people say, "Are you counting every bite?" Because the
Every
overall
nibble. It's like, that's what I
when
keep
you're
hearing I've
cooking
heard
your
that.
family food and you're, like, tasting it to see if it's good, you have to count that, right? Jesus Lord. Guys, that's not what's wrong. That was never what was wrong. You tasting the spaghetti sauce isn't why your weight loss stalled, okay? This is why, because we have a very smart body that metabolically adapts. Here's what happens. We're going to go back to the budget scenario, okay? You have a job, that's your calories. It makes you money. Your money is your calories. All of a sudden, the calories decrease. So let's say you took a pay cut or you lost your job. Okay, so we've decreased our calories. Then we increase our energy expenditure with exercise. Here's what your body does. What any smart person would do if the amount of money that came in started to become significantly less. Okay, whoa,
But
we have to
expenses
budget
went
here.
up.
The expenses have gone up drastically and the income has gone down drastically. Well, this scenario isn't going to work. So your body then says, okay, hold everything. What we need to do is we need to decrease the amount that we're spending every day. And if it can't do that through exercise, because you've said, like, well, I'm putting my 5% of exercise, I'm going to put that at a maximum and I'm going to continue to work out more, then it will take from your BMR, your NEAT, and your. So, this is what you see happen, and this is why your weight loss plateaus and why all of our weight loss plateaus when we aggressively diet is because the body is going to conserve energy when energy feels scarce. When money feels scarce, you're going to budget tighter. You're not going to expend things like frivolous spending. You're going to try to take your mortgage down, or you're going to move to a house that is less expensive, or rent that's less expensive. You're going to, all of these things are what your body does when it sees that the energy coming in is significantly less and the energy going out is significantly more.
For sure. And that's why too, when we look at when our goal is fat loss and we are kind of like be patient with your body, because like the changes that happen overnight are not the ones that are going to be impactful on for a long term. They just aren't. Like your body needs to be able to adapt and adjust, and muscle needs to build. It needs to kind of like reset how we're going to look at this expenditure, because immediately when we go into all of those crash diets, like, it's like, "What is happening here?" Like, your
Well,
needs
you would
haven't changed, like,
think.
you're still breathing, like.
Yeah, you still gotta breathe, and you would think, and what we all hope, is that the body would dip immediately into the fat stores. But if you think about that in a budgeting sense, your fat stores are your savings. So if you lost, your income, you wouldn't immediately dip into savings. That would kind of be your last case scenario. What you would do first is you would say, like, okay, like, how much less can I spend on my daily, my treats, right? We go like, oh, maybe I don't need to go to Starbucks, maybe I can make my coffee at home. Maybe I don't need to eat out, maybe I can cook more. Maybe I can cut some coupons and get some things on sale. These are the things that your body is going to do first before it dips into the savings. And eventually, will it need to dip into the savings? Yes, but it's going to lower the spend overall first. And that is why the fat loss is delayed or plateaued,
Mhm.
because everything has gone down. Your NEAT has gone down first, your thermostat setting, so like, your metabolic rate is going to decrease. All of the repairs in your system, that's why people get sick a lot more when they're on an extreme crash diet. And then the savings, last
Then we hit
case
our
scenario.
fat stores. But that's if, we're doing that's like if we're not, I don't wanna say, like, doing everything right, but, like, that's if we're doing patient and not doing this kind of like, "Oh, we went on a crash diet, now I fell off and that didn't work, nothing even happened," and it's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, you had literally no time for your body to adjust." But I wanna talk about the overall view of this and kind of give you guys some thoughts on when it comes to this 70% down here, in a way of like, we kind of talked about it in a sense of these are things that your body is automatically doing and that you don't have any control over. But I do want to insert, what are the biggest pieces of impact that control your BMR, that impact what your basal metabolic rate is, so that when you look at when you're like, okay, we looked at this and we're like, okay, well, I guess the 5% isn't my focus. I should move down from there. And this is the largest percentage of what my caloric intake is being the expenditure is on a daily basis. So what even impacts that? And we talked about what that does from a sense of, sleeping, eating, coughing, all of those things. But what are the biggest impacts for your BMR? Number one is your body size. This is kind of the biggest impact. So when it comes to your body size, the larger your body, the more calories it takes to maintain it. And for a lot of you guys, you might be like, well, yeah, duh, Kelsey. But for a lot of people like you, when you're looking at someone who has a completely different body than you, they're shorter, they're all like, they're a different whole person, and you're like, "Well, I she eats, 1,500 calories in a day, so I think that that would probably work for me." No, no, that doesn't work, and this is a big impact when we're looking at some of our male partners, and we're looking at how easy or difficult it is for them to decrease their body fat percentage with doing kind of the same things that we are, and this is a major impact right here because our body size is very impacted by our BMR. So this is not just, I mean, your total mass impacts your BMR. So this isn't just height, this is your total mass. But your organs, tissues, blood volume all require energy. Okay? So when we're looking at the blood volume in a larger body, it requires more calories to be able to sustain that body and how that body is going to run. So that's something I really want you guys to think about when it comes to what the impacts are for your BMR. The second one is your muscle mass. So when we said to you here at the top, 5% of your exercise is really your total caloric expenditure. That is 100% true. However, when it comes to your BMR, your muscle is metabolically active tissue, right? So when we are looking at when this 70% is activated here, it takes a lot more. It takes more calories daily to maintain muscle than it does fat.
Would
Okay?
you like to know how many? I have exactly how many.
Yeah, hit it.
A pound of muscle requires roughly about 6 to 10 calories per day while it's just resting, doing nothing. And a pound of fat needs about 2 to 3 calories per day while it's just resting, doing nothing. That's always just resting, doing nothing. So that might seem like a small difference, but when it comes to maintenance of that muscle, for every pound of muscle that you have versus every pound of fat, you're looking at about 7 more calories burned every day just to maintain it, doing nothing.
Yeah,
Just
this is maintaining your muscle at rest. So this is everything that we're still going to talk about when we're saying like going to have an impact here. It's still what your body is doing at rest because you can't say like breathe harder. Put that energy back into my muscles. Like that's not an impact like you can psychologically have on a daily basis, but on a long-term basis that is something that you can have an impact on because there's really only 8 significant factors that are going to impact your BMR, and those we need to look at those, right? Because that's a majority of your daily caloric intake. So when you think about like, 8-10 calories per day for per pound of muscle, you're like, is that really that much? It is because it's what you're burning when you're doing literally nothing.
You know what the other cool thing about muscle is that it works for you too. Not only burning calories, which, I know that that is when we're looking at fat loss, we're like, okay, what's the burn? We need to get the burn.
Burn.
But it's also really important tissue for things like reducing and regulating your blood sugar so that you're not having massive spikes and crashes. It repairs tissue, it generates heat, it supports your literal posture and your movement. So when energy comes in, yes, the muscle tissue requires to burn it to function, but the muscle tissue changes the way that your calories are being used. It almost uses them in a more productive way, health wise, than fat does. So, when for example, when your muscles are absorbing glucose from your bloodstream, it's performing a a function that supports your overall health far better than fat tissue does, which is not doing that very essential function that keeps you. So basically, like, people with more muscle mass are going to essentially burn more at rest, and they
Yes.
also are going to burn more during activity.
Yes. 100%. That's why I said, earlier that cardio is a pretty poor strategy for fat loss because, like, it doesn't have an impact on these things. It just doesn't. So when we're looking at, like, how what's gonna impact us here, this isn't my opinion. This isn't like, well, Kelsey doesn't think that this is an effective strategy. No, it
Cardio
literally
is cardio.
is not an effective strategy for what we're going to do that's gonna make the biggest impact on our day. Hey, you.
Thanks for getting in touch with the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast.
We love your questions and adore hearing from you.
Leave us a hello,
A burning question,
feedback.
or anything else you want to share with us on the podcast.
We will play your message live on air if we can.
Thanks for being an amazing friend. Stay safe and moving. So the third one is age. So when it comes to, and I know a lot of people say, well, that's the reason. No, I'm going to tell you, your metabolism isn't broken, but the impacts or the factors that influence age are definitely significant. But one of the main ones is loss of muscle. So between, like, you know, women especially tend to lose muscle, starting in their 30s, and it makes it harder for them to maintain muscle, and this is a real thing. But if we're also not trying to sustain muscle during those times or build muscle even younger when we're in our 20s, when it's ideal for us to maintain that muscle mass, we're only doing damage to our BMR during that time where we're shifting our focus away from that, because you're already, as you get older, you're already losing some of that muscle mass, and then you're not working to maintain it. The other impact with age is going to be some hormonal changes. We're going to get into hormones specifically in a little bit. But they definitely do have an impact on your BMR essentially as you age and as your hormones are just kind of making some adjustments. And you notice this with your nutritional needs. You notice this with your daily expenditure, your activity level, your energies, your sleep, all of these things that are impacted that you can see are impacted with change in hormone levels are also impacted with your BMR. And, you reduce cellular activity as you age. So, again, this is one of those things you don't have control over your cellular activity, but this is something that's impacted as you age and something that is considerable when it comes to your BMR. Want me to
So,
pop into the next one?
I mean, when we're listing these down, understand that like we the the underlying understanding is that there are going to be some things within our control, and there are going to be some things not within our control. However, if we understand the overall system, then we can pick out the things that are in our control and work towards them in a positive way that isn't just doing more damage to the metabolism by starving ourselves and hitting the treadmill for 4 hours. Okay? We understand that it's frustrating to not have everything within your control, but knowing what is in your control allows you to work smarter and not harder. So yes, age, yes, sex. Obviously, if you're a man, and this is why people have so much frustration when them and their husband go on the same diet and the husband drops 15 pounds and they gain 2, and it's like, what is happening? um More likely that your male counterpart is carrying more muscle mass. They are probably in a larger body than you, and they have higher testosterone. So those 3 things are
Yes.
going to raise their overall BMR, which is 70%. So yes, they are probably going to be expending more calories per day, and some of those things are changeable for you and some of them aren't. So, no, we're not recommending that you start on testosterone tomorrow. We are recommending that you maintain and build as much muscle mass as you can, because that is probably why your husband is on the same diet as you and losing more. And then, of course, there is a genetic
100%. Well, if
factor.
you see some of those things, like, if you see something listed in several of these other factors, so there's 8 factors that are a significant impact on your BMR. And when you see the same thing listed in several of those, that causes me to take pause and say, like, wait a minute, that's one that we definitely want to pay attention to.
So there is a genetic factor here. Obviously, some people naturally have a faster or slower metabolism. But I just want to say when it comes to genetics, obviously we have a very unchangeable factor there, or how we consider ourselves to be very unchangeable there. But when you think about your overall genetics and how that's affecting your BMR, don't get hung up on the fact that you just weren't blessed with a fast metabolism. Like, there are things that the people with faster metabolisms are doing. Look at what she's writing. Look at this. I think that's nice handwriting.
You.
It's not bad.
That's why it's an ideal body for you. Because we don't have this ideal body. We all look different. We're all in different body sizes. We all have different genetics that are at play here, and we all have a set point weight that our body is trying to strive to. But that doesn't mean we need to carry more. That doesn't mean that it's just like completely hopeless for you to carry more body fat that is productive for you on a daily basis, because there is an ideal body for you, and that's not going to look the same on you as it is on me, because like that's the beauty of like humans, right? That's the beauty of us all being different. And I totally understand why that at first glance might feel disheartening for a lot of people, that my genetics are different, and so we're all just born with a different metabolic rate. These are all true things, but the fact is that that's not this like throw your hands up, this is an end all be all. That is a statement of empowerment for you to find out what is ideal for you, and that
Plus,
takes
it's
into
one
account
out
your
of 8
lifestyle. It's
factors.
1 out of 8 for sure, but I just
So,
don't want us to get, like, hung up on the fact that, well, am I hopeless at getting to, like, this, like, body fat percentage or, like, whatever it is? It's just, like, that is a factor in there, but it is 1 of 8 for sure, and there is an ideal body for you that works with you in your life and is going to look different and is going to carry a different carry body fat in different places. Expenditure, it looks different. Like, that is all beautiful, but we don't have to throw that all away and say, well, I'm just genetically, I wasn't blessed, so I'm just stuck in a body that has no energy, doesn't sleep well, carries more body fat percentage than I'd like to, and it's just not within my control. If that's what you heard out of all of this, like, we have a psychological problem we need to discuss,
what's your trauma,
because that's
baby? Baby,
yeah.
what's your trauma?
What's your trauma?
Well, we have been hearing a lot about hormones lately. And, I think that it's so positive that hormones are finally getting their place at the table when it comes to body fat percentage, losing fat, and stalling on weight loss. Because finally, yes, we can all agree that hormones are a big factor in that 70% BMR. So when your body is at rest, what it is burning is affected by your hormones. So, yes, having hormone levels that are wildly out of whack is definitely going to negatively affect your BMR. And that's why I'm really, really glad that my menopausal ladies out there, my perimenopausal ladies, my postmenopausal, that we have finally come to a place where we can say, like, hey, we can treat this and we can get our hormone levels back to optimum, because it is making a difference. Your estrogen levels, your testosterone levels, how your thyroid is functioning, all of these things are a big, big player in your overall BMR. And if they're broken, 70% of your energy expenditure could be affected.
You know what? I love to talk to women specifically about this one, obviously, because we know like men's hormones, like really, like they just go on an even keel for
Isn't that
the
nice?
majority of their lives. But since it is such a significant impact, and we know estrogen affects your metabolic efficiency, and there are things that you can do. But this is the biggest problem with a lot of the crash dieting that you guys are doing and have done, is that we know, and you got and we can say like, well, I know it has effect on my hormones. I can see the differences in my period. I can see the differences in my, the things that I do, like how I'm interacting with people because I'm hangry. Like, we know all of these different effects, and you can say like, "Well, I'm just dealing with that while I crash diet and lose body fat." And it's like, well, that those 2 things don't go together, because if we know this has a significant impact and we see all the impact on our hormones when we do things like crash dieting, and there's another one that we're gonna talk to that's part of the 8, but when we see the significant impact, it's not just like, "Oh, well, it just impacts my hormones." What you're doing is you're impacting your ability to lose fat at rest.
The other factor, and this is a temporary one, so but it is oh, don't lose your pen. It is a factor. When your body is under a temporary amount of stress, it does change your resting metabolic rate. So if you, for example, are sick and you have a fever, if you're healing from an injury, if you're pregnant or if you're breastfeeding, people that are breastfeeding know, holy moly, like there is no amount of calories that can keep up because it's your what you're
Or
burning at
water, it's wild.
rest. Yes, because what you're burning at rest is so extreme, but it is important to remember that these are temporary, because your body will reset to a more natural resting metabolic rate when these things pass, when you get better and you're feeling better, when you're no longer breastfeeding,
Well, because
and
your house has got one goal, right? And let's go back to that for a second, because your house has got one goal. It's to keep you alive, it's to get you healthy, it's to heal you. It's like that's why when we're looking at what this major like expenditure is on the, and how it tiers up, is because like we want this. We want to be able to heal from injury. We want to be able to recover from sickness. We want to be able to think and cough and sneeze and do all of those like basic human things that we need to be able to do. And that's why like your metabolic rate is going to be impacted when you have something like a fever or illness, because it's going to need to control your body temperature. It's going to need to control, how you're fighting the illness. And that is excellent. So when you're under, so like going back to, we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, almost like, we don't just eliminate the 5% because of activity, because you have a better chance of recovering from things like that if, we have a good like cardiovascular health, you have good strength, you're overall in a healthy body, so we're able to adjust and adapt to some of the things that are thrown your way when it comes to illness and recovery, and obviously life changes like pregnancy and breastfeeding. The last one, the 8th major impact on your BMR that we're gonna talk about is your caloric calorie intake history. So, long periods of severe calorie restriction can cause metabolic adaptation, lower BMR as the body tries to conserve energy. So, all of these, I mean, I could say I hate crash diets until the cows come home, but, like,
listen,
all of these.
we know this. What really shed light on this, and we did an episode on this, was The Biggest Loser. Looking at the people and their metabolic health after Biggest Loser, because they went through a long period of a severe caloric restriction, and afterwards, their metabolic rate was changed far longer than they were ever in the severe restriction period. So the damage is lasting from these starvation periods,
Tactics, yep.
and your body will say, we haven't had money for a while, so we're budgeting this down to the lowest degree. And even when you put the money back and you start earning more and more calories start coming in, the body is going to continue to spend as if, for a period of time, as if you are still lost your job. So you need to know this when we're talking about these crash diets and when we're talking about severely lowering calories. The metabolic consequences here are, listen, I'm not
The
here to tell you
metabolic
what to do,
I'm not
but
here to tell you what to do, but the metabolic consequences of some of these things, and I don't want you to take that and think like your metabolism is broken. It's not
mm-mm,
broken. It's
mm-mm.
absolutely not broken. And it's not like you could look at this person here and say, like, well, mine doesn't work like that. No, yours does. This this isn't a specific one person. This is how yours works as well, and it's not broken, but you have to understand the damage that you're doing that we can work to repair if we look at some of the things that we are trying to talk about throughout this entire podcast, not just this one, just overall our Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. When we talk about these different factors and how we're going to focus on overall health and longevity and not these crash diets, because it's not going to help your fat loss to continue to do crash diets, to just focus on cardio and neglect muscle. It's not going to help you long term to decrease body fat percentage if that is your goal. So two things are happening
In
at the
fact,
same
it's
time.
gonna make it harder.
In fact, it's just gonna make it harder. And that's why when we go back to this eat less, move more, it's like, well, that's bullshit. Stop telling people to do that. Stop telling people to just like over cardio it out in order to lose fat. That's actually not the most effective strategy at all. And it when it comes down to it and we come down to like, okay, now that you understand that this is where your body is expending these calories and what your BMR is and what your NEAT is and how your body is going to use those calories on a daily basis, like let's look at the foods that you're intaking, what's the biggest bang for your buck? The movement that you're doing, what's the biggest bang for your buck? When it comes to your NEAT, like, do you have a standing desk? Things like that when it comes to small sustainable changes on a daily basis that are going to have a big impact. It's not the key lime pie. It's
It's not,
not.
and
It's
it
not the key
never
lime
was.
pie. It's not the massive amount of cardio that you've decided to implement. It's not, like, decreasing your caloric intake to an inappropriate level to where your body feels like, "Now I'm doing metabolic damage," when it's no matter what, I'm gonna come back to this because I have to keep you alive and I have to keep you healthy to your body, what your health is, and I'm going to come back to the weight that I feel comfortable at.
So, if we can say our metabolism is both a regulated system and an adaptive system, then we can look at the pyramid and we can say at the base, I want to address the 70% that my body is expending at rest as much as I can. That means we want to build muscle. That means we want to ensure our hormone levels are regulated. And that means that overall, we want to make sure that our body does not metabolically adapt to an extremely low caloric intake. If we're going to lower calories, we want to do it in a slow, controlled manner so that there is not any metabolic adaptation that is extreme. Then when we go up one, when we go to NEAT, we're talking about things like what you're doing in the rest of the day. Make sure that you're taking the stairs. Make sure you think we think that these things are so small. Make sure that you're getting up and standing up throughout the day if you have a sitting job. Take the stairs when you can. Like, fidget if it feels natural to you. Take a walk to someone's desk or the water cooler if you have, a very sedentary job. These things are going to make so much more of a difference than the hour that you're spending in the gym, which I know that that's really surprising, but it is what it is. And then going up from there onto that 10% with what you're eating, keep in mind that
All foods are not
digesting
created equal.
protein, yes, all foods are not created equal. Digesting protein is going to take significantly more calories than digesting fat. And that is why nutrition matters if you're talking in a metabolic stance. And then, and then we go to the gym and what you're doing in the gym and prioritizing building muscle in the gym because that goes back
Because
down
how
to
is
the
it going to
beginning of
feed?
the
Because we have to look at
exactly.
how it feeds the rest of these systems. So, like, we can say that 5% on a daily basis, like, "Oh, that's really small," but, like, when we're looking at the time spent in there, is it feeding some of these other systems? If we're having a severe caloric decrease while we're having a cardio increase without focusing on any muscle building, then we're like, "Well, what are we actually doing here?" Like,
Damaging
we're
your
not
metabolism.
Yeah, we're not actually feeding anything down here, and we're just, like, really putting that 5%, we're, like, looking at it for more of a 3%. We're not looking at the other impacts that we'll have on the rest of the pyramid. So when it comes like, I really want you guys to, like, take this information, sit with it for a little bit. Maybe some of it you knew, maybe some of it you're gonna take away and change, but, um, I want you to take this information with the power that it has, because when we talk about, like, "Oh, these are things that your body is doing that you don't have any control over," totally, but we can do things that impact those systems if we think about it right, and if we think about how we wanna fuel the entire system appropriately, and health will never be in a way that you don't get a healthy lifestyle with unhealthy methodology. You don't get a healthy lifestyle by saying like, "Well, I don't feel good when I'm doing all of these things. I feel like I have low energy. I've really decreased my calories. I'm so tired from the marathon I did at the gym." If those are not healthy behaviors, habits, they're not going to create a healthy lifestyle, and there's a reason for that. You're not broken, you're not just you hate the gym or you can't figure out how to diet appropriately, like, oh, you're still looking for the next one, like, you're not broken. Your metabolism isn't broken. The system that you've been fed is not factual. So let's look at the actual facts and create a strategy that works for you.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and that you had some mind blowing moments. If you did, make sure to put them in the comments. If you've got questions or you want to see Venn diagrams, Kelsey's got more space on the whiteboard. She
I
brought a
do.
towel so
I
she
read.
can actually, we can. Listen, we have all the space we need. If you've got questions, hit up the comments section. And we hope you guys enjoyed this look into the system that is your metabolism.